KSMO, it's time for our spotlight on the Salem Memorial District Hospital. Cindy Fry has made her way in. Good to have you. We haven't seen you in about a year.
Yeah, it's been about a year, I
Yeah,
think.
so well, good to have you.
Thank you.
And Cindy, you want to talk a little bit about acute care today. There have been some changes in acute care, haven't there?
Yes, there has. Acute Care, our unit is a 26-bed unit staffed with nursing professionals, and these nurses, and the CNAs, the monitor techs, all of them are a group of professionals that I'm very proud of. I'm very confident in their abilities and the care that they provide. They're qualified to care for both children all the way up to adults. So we provide service for a wide range of patients. Our primary patients that we care for are adults. So we see a lot of different illnesses.
Tell us some of the things that you do. You have services. What services do you guys provide for people in acute care?
Sure. So most of our patients are in there for respiratory reasons. So we see a lot of pneumonia, a lot of COPD. We see a lot of cardiac issues such as congestive heart failure. A lot of trouble, and with that comes trouble breathing. So the respiratory issues tie in with that too.
Tie hand in hand.
Sure, right. We have cardiac monitoring or telemetry systems, so that the patient wears a unit, sort of a purse, if you will, that's attached to their chest, and we can monitor them from the nurse's station.
Okay, very good. Yeah, you guys do a lot of different things. Post-operative care is there as well, right?
Yes, we are. We do. Our hospital does provide some outpatient surgeries, so we are. If that patient would be admitted there at the hospital, we are capable of taking care of them.
Okay, very good. That, and of course, if they're having surgery, obviously wound care. That would kind of go hand in hand with that, right?
Wound care. Then there's also another idea of a wound. That wound that didn't come from a surgery, maybe a ulcer from pressure or a diabetic ulcer, that type of thing. We have a certified wound specialist there at the hospital.
Right.
They do see patients back there on the floor or in our unit, and they evaluate that patient, suggest treatments, and then provide treatments as well. So
it's a pretty important part of our hospital when it comes to people's health like that. Acute care, it can be a deal breaker, can't it?
It can.
Yeah.
It can. We're the only unit in the hospital that cares for these patients that are admitted. So, as I mentioned, it's a broad range. All patients that are admitted are going to be back there in our unit.
All right. So we've heard, and Casey was here last week. We got changes being made to our hospital. A lot of changes being made.
A lot of changes,
being made
yes.
to our hospital, and acute care has not been left out. You guys have had some changes being made. Can you get us up to date on a little bit what's going on in acute care?
It's very exciting to see all those changes. I've worked at the hospital several years, and just to see how it's evolved is really, really exciting.
An old building getting new again, right?
An old building getting new again.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. So we started off with our remodeling in the bathrooms. We had a few bathrooms that were remodeled. They haven't changed in size, but they're more accessible, handicap accessible now than what they were. Our showers have been enlarged in those rooms, so we
Very
can
good.
accommodate patients that aren't able to stand, obviously, and bathe themselves. We started off with that. We also went forward to paint all of our rooms. Actually, the whole unit has been repainted.
Right.
New lighting. We've improved the lighting over the bed, and then in the ceiling too. We had no lighting in the overhead.
You got
So we
LED
installed
lighting
new.
now over the bed, don't you?
Lighting is very important,
yeah.
and we were very grateful for that.
Yeah, very good. Go ahead.
A lot of new furniture, so all the patient and visitor furniture has been replaced. We also have our end-of-life room that has a family room just adjacent to that
Right.
room. So we've supplied new furniture, replaced all that furniture with new, with the help of Southtown Furniture helped us out with that. It looks very nice in there now. It's very, very homelike.
Should have had some new windows put in, didn't you
Recently,
not?
that's been
Yes.
our most recent.
Yeah.
We had the energy efficient windows installed throughout the department, which
Those windows were from the 60s.
those windows were original with the building, yeah. So this winter, I think we're going to see it's going to be a lot easier to keep those rooms at a stable temperature with that. We also replaced that countertop just inside that window with new
Right, and then the
counters.
hospital foundation bought you a new flooring,
Yes,
didn't
yes.
they?
That's the most. I think that's the most impressive part of all that remodeling is that floor. We originally had carpet in that floor,
Right.
on that floor. Carpet's difficult to clean, difficult to care for. So all the carpet's been removed and it's replaced with a wood look welded flooring that is obviously much easier to keep clean. That welded flooring helps us keep it much more sanitary.
Right.
Than
It
the
looks.
carpet.
I kind of looks like vinyl. Kind of looks like wood.
It does.
But you know what? It's. Jason was telling me about it, and I thought it was pretty amazing. It's welded together. It said, he goes, you wouldn't believe this flooring. You really got to come out and see it.
It changes the
And,
looks of the
yeah.
department completely.
He said totally, and he showed a picture of it to me. And I went, wow, that's nice. So,
It is.
anyway, so a lot of changes in acute care,
Right.
keeping up to date.
Right.
But one of the things that never changes is the care. The care is always consistent.
We hope so. Our nurses are very caring. They look at the whole patient. They instead of looking just at the diagnosis or the disease, they look at a lot of the times they know the patient,
Right.
so they're familiar with their home situation. They're familiar that maybe the daughter cares for the patient and she also works. So they have that time that we need to try to figure out how to get the care that the patient
Right.
needs when they're at home.
Right, and one of the things that we see at every monthly board meeting, Debbie Hines brings in the acuity chart, about the people in acute care, and some really need a lot of help, some are on their way to recovery and don't need as much help, but it changes every day for you guys, doesn't it?
Right, that Acuity Staffing, we changed that during it's been about a year ago that we changed that, and how we had staffed before or made our assignments for our patients, for our nurses, is based on numbers. So we might assign a nurse 5 patients. We found that our patients were getting more sick and requiring more care, had more needs. And so we've switched from assigning by numbers to assigning by how sick the patient was or the amount of care that they
acuity
need.
level,
The
right?
acuity level, exactly. So we have an acuity level that we staff by now. It was a little difficult in that transition, trying to learn that new process, but it's been very successful.
And the reason being, somebody who's very ill needs a lot more attention than
Yes.
somebody who's not.
Right.
And if you had a nurse just going by numbers at 5 and 3 of them were very high on the acute level, those other 2 probably aren't going to see much of your nurse at all.
Right. It makes a more safe environment for caring for that patient.
So I thought it was a great idea, and I love to watch that graph, and you can, you just see when people are admitted that are really sick, and you see that acuity level shoot up, and you see the nurses go right up with it.
Right.
It's pretty impressive to watch that on a chart. That one day it might be really low and not much happening, the next day, bang.
Right.
It can happen in one day.
We would have loved to have
nobody
been
knows.
able to see what that was like, that acuity level, how it rose. But obviously that wasn't something we was monitoring before.
Yeah,
but
so very, very interesting how they do that. But with everything else that's changing, I'm sure the acute care has had a few COVID adjustments to be made. Everybody has, so
Everybody has.
I'm sure. And we all know that in the hospital, every single day, you guys go over what's current.
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like, well, we haven't talked about this in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So what's going on in your department? Every single day at the hospital, every morning, you guys have a meeting. It goes over every single thing with COVID-19. What's the latest? What's going on? Local cases, etc. So, but acute care is affected by COVID-19.
Right, and we do, as you mentioned, we do have those huddles. It's hospital-wide, and then we also have a separate huddle that we call it our 2-minute huddle at the beginning of each shift, where we go over specifically those issues that affect our department.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, COVID is one of those issues that we would discuss. We've changed a lot of things in our department, added a lot of things, stepped up a lot of things that we had already been doing. Sanitation, for instance, obviously we were cleaning the department, but now we've added additional sanitation throughout the day, where previously we were usually doing it about once a day, just general high-touch surfaces. So we're cleaning those high-touch surfaces much more often.
Right.
Obviously, we're all wearing masks,
Yeah,
like
well,
we suggest
everybody in
that
the hospital
everybody
wears
do. Yes. We also have designated an area in our hospital for those COVID patients, either the patients that we know that they are COVID positive, and then for those patients that we are waiting for those test results to come back on those. So they're kept separate from other patients in their
Okay.
own area. We had to do a lot of planning with our nursing staff to make sure that exposure was as minimal as possible, along with ensuring that all of our staff had the PPE,
I was
that
gonna
word that
say,
we've heard a lot of
yeah,
here
personal
recently.
protective equipment. Yeah.
Yes, making sure that our staff had the needed PPE to keep them protected, so that we could keep them healthy and keep them providing that good patient care that we expect.
A year ago, you probably wouldn't have thought about that, would you?
Absolutely. In a way,
Yeah.
no. As a healthcare worker, we know that this is always possible, but we never thought there would be a day that we would have to wear a mask from the time we came to work till the time we left.
And what people might think something like that would be maybe a reaction to something radioactive or something, or an ammonia hydrous kind of thing, where masks and personal protective equipment would need concealment, get burned, and things of that nature. That's when I think people think it's something like this. And COVID-19 is this invisible
Yes.
agent. You can't see it, but you still have to protect against it.
Yes.
And not only you, but you got to protect those you work with.
Right.
I mean, so it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Right, it is. We had to rethink a lot, just about everything that we do, from how the way that the trays are brought into the room for the meals, to trash that's coming out of the room and who takes that trash out of the room. That nurse is the sole that's assigned to that COVID patient or that rule out COVID patient. They're the only one that cares for that patient, so they're providing 100%, anywhere from the nursing, their general nursing responsibilities, up to emptying the trash, providing any respiratory care that normally would have been provided by the respiratory department.
Okay.
They're that sole person that
Wow.
that patient sees for that 12 hours that they're assigned.
So the old protocol that you guys would have had, say, back in February, probably there's remnants of that, but it probably is. You probably have changed your whole protocol totally, though. I mean,
We have.
because of COVID, obviously, you're already talking about a little bit about it, but disinfecting more. But also, there probably had to be additional training to go with this,
Absolutely.
is right?
So we had to evaluate the equipment, first of all, that we had to be able to provide care to see, because we anticipate seeing more patients and more acute or sicker patients than what we are accustomed to seeing. And one would think that you would just transfer them to another facility, but we anticipate not being able to transfer them to other facilities because the other facilities are full and
Right.
don't have the capability
Sure.
to take on another patient. So we've evaluated our equipment that we have and what we can provide for those patients that we don't typically care for. And then we also had to train our staff on how to provide that care that they may have learned many years ago or may have seen many years ago, but now they're going to be doing again. So updates along with
Sure.
that re-educating.
And when you talk about that, I think people forget. I mean, nursing, you go through a lot of school, and you do a lot of book learning, but you learn a lot of different things on site. I mean, it's not just you take a test in a book and you go and throw it in a hospital and you think, okay, I know it all, because you don't. You get that practical training in a hospital, but nobody could have predicted this
No.
when they were going through their training to become an RN.
Right.
Nobody. I mean, you wouldn't have thought about this. And so when we talk about this instruction and maybe re-instruction, this is all brand new to these nurses. And then they have to kind of maybe alter what they were taught earlier, because we got to be a little bit more careful and we got to be a little bit more protective than what they were originally taught. And
Right.
only because of COVID-19. And Cindy, that's not always bad, is it?
No, it's not. We have, as I mentioned, I'm very proud of our nurses and I'm very confident in their abilities, and that extra training, that additional training. It's brought a lot of nurses. I think it's made them more aware of their capabilities and their abilities to care for these patients.
Pretty amazing. Nurses need a tip of the cap. They do a tremendous job, but probably don't get thanked enough for the job they do. They're there in some of the worst times, and sometimes they're there in some of the best times
Yes,
too.
they are.
When the people recover and get to walk out of the hospital, and they take every nurse that I know out there takes every patient personally.
We
They just do. They it's like family.
Good.
And that's how they treat them. And then when they leave, they like to see them again, but not in the same circumstances. Hey, but one of the neat things is that's what's so good about having a smaller hospital. People get intimate. They actually
do.
know each other, and they want you to heal. They will work with you to do what you need to get done, and of course, listen to these nurses. They're very, very good nurses that we have here in our local hospital, and so hopefully, don't give them a rough time. And I know sometimes when you're feeling bad, it's easy to blame somebody.
It is, and we understand
Yeah.
that. We realize that for the majority of the time, patients are not planning to be in the hospital, or their family was not planning for this event to occur.
Right.
So we realize that happens, and people handle stress in different ways,
They sure
and
do.
we're prepared for that.
Yeah.
We have broad shoulders.
Yeah, you do. And again, I tip my cap to them because they are a great group. Fantastic group that you have. And we just want to really recognize them for the great work that they do. Probably most of it behind the scenes that nobody even sees. Which is true, right?
Oftentimes, yes,
Yeah,
oftentimes
really
it
is.
is.
Don't even know they're there sometimes. You might not even know the nurse if you're in acute care. You don't even know the nurse might even be in a room. They may be in there for 15 minutes doing this, doing that, changing things, tucking in the sheets, doing little stuff. You
Just
don't
little
even know
things.
they're there. And then you wake back up, and all of a sudden, well, this has been changed. Maybe your water's been refilled.
Mm-hmm.
All these little things, and you just take that for granted. Because you're not in there because you want to be in there. You're in there
Right.
because you're not healthy. But you need to thank your nurse. They're the ones that did that.
Well,
It just
thank
didn't
you.
just happen overnight. Drop out of the ceiling. It just didn't happen. But again, want to thank Cindy for coming in, spending some time with us, and talk a little bit about acute care and our nursing and some of the changes being made at the hospital. Anything you want to leave us with? I know we have a no visitor policy right now at the hospital,
We
except
do.
for maybe end of life.
We have specific situations that we realize that come up that's very important for families, and we're going to do everything we can to accommodate patients in those times. So that no visitor policy, some of those exceptions would be end of life, and if that patient is at the end of their life, then we will allow family members to come in. No children, and that's for the children's protection.
Right.
But the family members are allowed to come in otherwise. And then if we have a child that would come in under 17, we will allow one parental figure that would come in. I say parental figure, it does not have to be the parent, but it does have to be an adult
Right.
that would come in with them.
Preferably a legal guardian.
Preferably a
Yeah.
legal guardian, yes, sir.
Yeah, because sometimes decisions have to be made, and
Yes.
it can get tricky, can't
Right.
it? Yeah,
Yes,
it can
it
just
can.
get tricky. We'll leave it at that. Cindy, a pleasure to have you come in. If anybody has any questions about acute care or about our nursing situation, can they give you a call?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What's your number, dear?
Our number is 729-6626, and my extension specifically is 4036.
Pleasure. Don't wait a year to come back and
Okay.
tell us. And hopefully there'll be some more updates, and you can keep us on top of the
Oh,
situation in acute
I'd love
care.
to.
Really do appreciate you. Thank you very much. That's our spotlight on the Salem Memorial District Hospital and Cindy Fry. Thank you.